Just a hop over into Nigeria and let's take a look at what's happening in the financial services sector there. It's been announced that the Central Bank of Nigeria has started a forensic investigation into 21 banks who are alleged to have been involved in round-tripping, effectively buying forex on the official market, selling it at higher rates on unofficial markets using different sources. The news agency of Nigeria quotes the CBN as saying that the investigation would in the interim be limited only to 21 commercial banks. Joining us now is Kayode Akindele, who is the director at the TIA Group. Kayode, always nice to have you. Okay, I gave my summation of what round tripping is. Give us the expert definition.
Well, in reality, because Nigeria is really, the capital is closed. So in the terms of the official exchange rate, the CBN has a wholesale Dutch auction system where banks or authorized dealers, which are mainly banks, can apply for bid for foreign exchange from there. Now, in terms of, but only for eligible transactions. Now, in terms of all other transactions, it comes up through what is really called the parallel market, which is handled by the bureau de changes and other unofficial sources. And the difference between the two official rate done by CBN and the rate in the parallel market has thinned in recent years, but it seems to have gone wider again.
Okay, how widespread is this practice? The CBN apparently is looking at 21 banks. Is that just a small sample?
No, I mean, there are 24 banks in Nigeria. I think what CBN, the 3 banks that were taken over by AMCON and had a new manager and put in have been left out. But all other banks, including the international banks, are all being looked at. So I think it's just a general look at all the banks. Because of the disparity between the rates, there has been rumors that round tripping has been in effect. And I think CBN is just looking at all the banks to make sure this has not been happening.
I mean, there's the question also, Kayode, of whether or not this kind of investigation, even though you're saying right now there's no need for panic, is part of the widespread reforms that have been undertaken by the central bank with the conclusion of the mergers that we're going to see hopefully by the end of September. And there's just a sense that maybe they're just going a little bit too far, because effectively in trying to stabilize the forex market, the banks have been quite responsible, is what we're told.
I think it depends. I mean, CBN has to regulate the market, and there are rules on the forex market. If banks are breaking the rules, then they should be punished. And I think that's what CBN is trying to emphasize, that if you break the rules, you will be punished, because gone is a time where previously it has been said that banks were breaking rules in various different regulatory rules, and there was no enforcement. And they're trying to show that enforcement should be in place. I think also that the CBN has take a bit of the blame, because there's been a bit of policy flip-flops in terms of the foreign exchange market. I mean, in June, CBN, earlier this year, CBN stopped what are called Class A bureau de changes from taking part in the wholesale Dutch auction market and forced them to move into the autonomous market, which are from banks. Then in June, they announced that they were going to limit how much they could buy from the banks in the autonomous market. Then in August, they said the limit was going to be removed after the market seemed to be the gap seemed to be widening. And that's created uncertainty in the market. And that's helped to widen the gap and led to this kind of rumors that there's round tripping going on.
Let's talk about getting some sort of parity in the price of the naira against the dollar. We've also seen the CBN, for instance, raise their sales to bureau de change. We know of different or removing some of the restrictions that have existed within the parallel market. All of this, is it starting to stabilize the price?
The demand for dollars in the market has, in the last 3 or 4 months, has gone very wide, and that's one of the reasons the CBN started to kind of clamp down on the bureau de changes, because they felt that the demand was artificial and was putting pressure on the naira. But it's kind of backfired. So they rolled back those restrictions to try and open up the market a bit more and see it come down. Now, in terms of the banks are, although they're doing a wholesale Dutch auction, they're only supposed to onsell that to clients who are on eligible transactions. And what CBN is going through in this process is asking those banks to show the documentation of who they sold those the bidded forex to, and the documentation to prove that they sold it under the right terms. Now, in terms of the bureau de changes, there's also been a bit of a worry in the sense that with our KYC, anti-money laundering procedures were being carried out in terms of their clients in terms of the broad change. And I think that's one of the aspects that CBN was looking at as well.
Talking about the banks issuing receipts on who they've been selling dollars to, some people are saying, wow, it's going to create a huge paper trail because effectively Nigeria is import dependent. Petroleum, food, that sort of thing. It's just too much that's going to be required. It's effectively a scrutiny on the country's import bill.
Well, to fact, clients have two options. The first option is go through the official channels, through the CBN WDAS system, and make a bid through there. If they make a bid through there, they have to fill in documentation, and it has to be for certain transactions. And then they can get the official rate or whatever that clears at. Now, they can go through the broad changes and get through the parallel market rate, which is normally can be higher, so they have that option. In terms of the documentation, it is a big documentation process, but it is a closed capital market. So in that sense, the documentation is the onus on the banks. They have to have the documentation to take part in the market, and so it's expected that those documentation should be in place.
Finally, Kayode, punitive measures. If bank executives have been found to have faulted and there are infractions, what sort of punishment can the CBN introduce? And again, I remind you of the huge kind of fallout that came with the banking reforms when they were instituted and the kind of legal measures that were taken.
This kind of action in the forex market has happened before. I think the last big one was, I think, around 2002, 2003, where the sanctions were some bank MDs were asked to step down, excluding some supervisory directors as well, and also some banks lost their licenses to be authorized dealers in the forex market. Now, the forex market is a very big income earner for banks, so losing that license could have a big effect on their income. So it is a big stick. But then you have to also look at it from the point of view that if the banks are breaking the rules, then CBN has to step in. And I think that's what CBN is trying to do.
All right, thanks so much for your time, Kayode Akindele, who's director at the TIA Group.